The CCP's desire to annex Taiwan isn't really about maintaining territorial integrity. If it were truly about China's territorial integrity, why haven't they taken back the land Russia occupied under the Treaty of Aigun? Right now, Russia is at its weakest. The Treaty of Aigun, signed during the Qing Dynasty, is something China could now negotiate with Russia, but they haven't asked Russia for it. So clearly, the reason for invading Taiwan isn't about territory. What is the purpose of invading Taiwan? It is to change the rules-based world order. They want to establish their hegemony in the Western Pacific or internationally. That is their real goal. If their only goal were to take Taiwan, they wouldn't need to expand their military in the East China Sea and South China Sea, nor would they need to conduct joint military exercises with Russia or venture into the Taiwan Strait and the Sea of Japan. So it's very clear to us.
This video features Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te during a TV interview on September 1st. Lai's sharp remarks directly targeted the CCP's hypocrisy. His point is well-founded. The CCP claims Taiwan was taken by Japan during their so-called century of humiliation, implying the period between 1839 and 1949. However, it is also during this period that Russia seized over 1.5 million square kilometers of Chinese territory, roughly equivalent to 42 Taiwans. Despite the CCP's rhetoric about unifying the motherland and reclaiming lost lands, they have only dared to threaten the much smaller Taiwan island, never confronting Russia for the vast lands taken during the Qing Dynasty. Lai's words put the CCP in a difficult position, leading to their refusal to respond directly. However, this remark sparked widespread online discussion, with many overseas Chinese expressing support. Several people agreed with Lai's argument, noting that Chinese media would likely not air this interview. One Chinese person commented that this is the first time a Taiwanese leader has addressed the core issue. Another remarked, "Why is Taiwan's leadership so well informed?" Some even sarcastically commented that the CCP, as a regime born from the Soviet system, would never dare to ask for Russia's occupied lands back. Surprisingly, Russia was the first to break its silence. On September 3rd, the official website of the Russian Foreign Ministry published a statement by spokesperson Maria Zakharova in response to Lai Ching-te's interview. The Russian Foreign Ministry first reiterated its adherence to the One China policy. It then pointed out that in the 2001 Treaty of Good Neighborness and Friendly Cooperation between Russia and China explicitly stated that both parties would renounce any territorial claims against each other, serving as the foundation of bilateral relations. The statement also mentioned that in October 2004, China and Russia signed another supplementary agreement allowing China to regain half of Bolshoyushchyrsky Island and other disputed areas. However, it's important to note that while China recovered over 300 square kilometers of land, it ceded more than 1.5 million square kilometers to Russia. This, in effect, amounts to nothing. Russia's response highlighted the fact that under the then-leader Jiang Zemin, the CCP willingly handed over vast Chinese lands to Russia. This can only be described as an act of betrayal. It also reveals that the CCP's narrative of erasing the century of humiliation is nothing more than an empty slogan to deceive the public. As one Chinese person pointed out, Russia's statement exposed the CCP's hypocrisy, turning their claim of not giving up any inch of territory into a joke. Although the CCP refrained from responding, a pro-CCP writer named Dr. Wang Jing penned an article downplaying Lai's remarks, claiming Taiwan's status was an internal matter unrelated to territorial disputes. However, Chinese people were not convinced, with many commenting in support of Lai's argument. One user stated, "Lai told the truth this time." Another criticized the government's handling of past land deals with Russia, lamenting the loss of ancestral lands that were never reclaimed. It is evident that the CCP long-standing propaganda, which has distorted historical facts, no longer convinces the people, especially the older generations who remember these events. Some have remarked the Treaty of Aigun, the 1900 Amur anti-Chinese pogroms, these were covered in history class, but later removed from textbooks, right? To reclaim them, we need both wisdom and courage. Indeed, as this person suggested, during Jiang Zemin's tenure, to cover up the reality of selling out the country, he ordered the removal of the sections in textbooks about Russia's seizure of Chinese territory. However, Older generations in China are still familiar with this part of history. It turns out that today China's people are not so easily deceived. Back then, one of the CCP's court scholars, Jing Chen-rong, who claimed to be an expert on US issues, tried to mislead the Chinese people with similar rhetoric.
Once the Taiwan issue is resolved, the century of humiliation will be completely behind us. Taiwan is the last chapter of that humiliation, and resolving it will bring an end to this painful period. With Taiwan's reunification, the mindset of the Chinese people will be much healthier and more confident. Solving the Taiwan issue would truly establish China's new international prestige, and the global balance of power could change overnight. We are determined to take Taiwan, and the US will be powerless to stop it, merely making empty noise. The world will realize that the old power is no longer strong, and a new boss has emerged.
Given Jing's extensive credentials, professor at the School of International Studies at Renmin University, PhD advisor, and public democracy consultant at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it raises question as to how an expert with such a background could overlook the fact that Russia seized 1.5 million square kilometers of Chinese territory. It seems unlikely that merely taking control of Taiwan could significantly change the CCP's mindset or enable China to surpass the US and become the dominant global power. But hearing such statements from Jing Chen-rong, whom the CCP considers a national strategist, further exposes the regime's global dominance ambitions, and at the same time validates Lai Ching-te's remarks. Independent journalist Tang Hao analyzed Lai's speech, pointing out that it revealed three truths the CCP doesn't want the Chinese people to understand. Number one, the CCP manipulates patriotism to incite the people. Under the banner of patriotism and national unity, the CCP stirs up nationalistic emotions and then uses the people as tools for its struggles. However, it dares not reclaim the territory taken by Russia. Number two, the CCP is the greatest traitor to the nation. Beyond abandoning Chinese territory to Russia, the CCP also throws money at third world countries to buy their support, which is, in essence, another form of selling out the country. In 1999, Jiang Zemin signed an agreement with then Russian President Boris Yeltsin regarding the Western Front borders. He ceded over 1 million square kilometers of land to Russia, an area equivalent to dozens of Taiwans. Jiang even gave Russia access to the Tumen River estuary. Infiltrate the world and advance its imperial dream of global domination, the CCP continues to provide loans and so-called free aid to weaker countries. They know these small nations can't repay, so when the time comes, the CCP exchanges debt for strategic assets like ports or forgives the loans in exchange for political loyalty. All it takes is a declaration of support for the One China policy and the idea that Taiwan is an inseparable part of China for these nations to receive rewards. So how much has the CCP really thrown abroad? Jing once proudly revealed.
Many African leaders come to China for no real reason. They just visit Beijing, enjoy some good food, and say, "We firmly support the One China policy. Taiwan is an inseparable part of China." As soon as they finish, they immediately ask for money like, "Come on, big boss, show some goodwill." They really mean it, and they're quite bold about it. According to a professor from Tsinghua University, it's estimated that we spend about 30 billion yuan every year just to maintain this policy.
In other words, the CCP spends billions each year to gain foreign support for the One China principle. According to the Global Times data from 2020 to 2023, China disbursed 6 trillion yuan in foreign aid. All of this money is essentially taken from the Chinese people. Some have calculated that all this money were loaned to businesses within China. It could completely resolve the financing difficulties of 10 million such small businesses, providing each with an average of 600,000 yuan. If used for agriculture and rural development, it could enable 100 million farmers to achieve a decent standard of living, with each household receiving an average of 60,000 yuan. If distributed to every Chinese citizen, each person could receive around 4,000 yuan. However, despite the ongoing economic downturn, factory closures, and widespread suffering, Xi Jinping is determined to continue this large-scale foreign spending. On September 5th, at the Forum of China-Africa Cooperation held in Beijing, Xi made a bold promise of 51 billion USD in funding support for Africa over the next 3 years. He declared that China-Africa relations are at their best in history. Additionally, he announced that China has actively participated in the G20 debt service suspension initiative and has suspended debt repayments for 77 developing countries. In 2022, at the 8th ministerial meeting of FOCAC, China's top diplomat Wang Yi wrote off 23 interest-free loans owed by 17 African countries. This practice of lavish foreign spending while being extremely frugal at home has drawn heavy criticism, with some likening it to an act of national betrayal. Journalist Tang Hao's third point of analysis is that the CCP aims to escalate tensions in the Taiwan Strait to create leverage for negotiations or divert domestic pressure. In recent years, the CCP has been sanctioned by major Western countries, and China's economy has been in decline. As a result, the CCP has lost its bargaining power in foreign negotiations. Consequently, it has adopted a strategy similar to North Korea by stirring up tensions in the Taiwan Strait, South China Sea, and East China Sea to create leverage, forcing the US to engage with the CCP to de-escalate tensions and avoid conflict. Lai's comments during the interview also garnered international media attention and discussion. The Guardian reported that Taiwan is located at the core of the Pacific First Island chain, and controlling Taiwan will allow the CCP to effectively control key strongholds in the region, increasing their grip on the Taiwan Strait. Newsweek noted that in recent years, China's past concessions to Russia have become a subject of debate among Chinese nationalists who argue that Moscow now returns the lost Chinese territories, including Vladivostok, the largest city in Russia's Far East. In a September 3rd commentary, the UK's Telegraph directly questioned why. If China is truly concerned about reclaiming lost territories, it focuses on Taiwan rather than the territory ceded to Russia in the 19th century, given that most Russian forces are engaged in Ukraine. With China's rapidly military expansion, it might be easier for China to invade Russia by land and reclaim the territory seized by Russia rather than crossing the Taiwan Strait to invade Taiwan. Amidst the ongoing conflict with Russia, several Ukrainian media outlets reported on this interview and emphasized that now is the best time for China to reclaim its historical territories, as Russia is deeply entangled in the Ukraine war and at its weakest in terms of defense. In response to Lai's remarks, Japanese veteran journalist Akio Yatta also commented on Facebook, stating that this was a powerful rebuttal by a Taiwanese leader to the CCP's double standards on territorial issues. Yatta noted that President Lai's remarks are historically grounded. The Treaty of Aigan, signed in 1858 between the Qing government and Russia, ceded large portions of the Far East to Russia, while Taiwan was ceded to Japan in 1895 under the Treaty of Shimonoseki. After the CCP took power in 1949, it declared that it would not recognize any unequal treaties signed by previous governments and used this declaration to reclaim Hong Kong from Britain, which had been ceded in 1842. Yatai questioned why the CCP has always been aggressive when dealing with countries that signed unequal treaties, yet remained soft when it comes to Russia. Not only did they not ask for the return of the land, but Jiang Zemin's regime in the 1990s also ceded additional land to Russia, leaving many puzzled. He pointed out that, as President Lai said, the CCP's desire to annex Taiwan is not about territorial integrity, but about changing the rules based on world order and establishing hegemony in the Western Pacific and globally. Xi Jinping is attempting to challenge the US-led democracy camp, with Russia acting as the CCP's accomplice. The claim that Taiwan independence will lead the war is merely a convenient excuse. Yatai further stated that, given Russia's weakened state due to the war, it would be a good time for the CCP to reclaim its lost territories, and it might even be achievable with just a little money. Yet, for some reason, the CCP continues to provide significant aid to Russia without making any demands. This has sparked outrage among many in China. Well-known Chinese financial blogger Lao Man also proposed an alternative, more radical solution to China's economic and social issues in a video published on YouTube on August 12. He suggests that given Russia's current weakened state due to the war with Ukraine, China could invade and occupy Siberia under the pretext of striking against an aggressor. However, Siberia expands larger than China, and China might not be able to fully absorb it. Nonetheless, the land could be divided up later, and even if China couldn't take all of it, reclaiming the 6 million square kilometers east of the Lena River, ceded in the Treaty of Nasinsk during the Qing Dynasty, would be a significant achievement. Siberia is rich in coal, steel, oil, and natural gas resources, which Russia lacks the capacity to fully exploit. But China has the capability to develop these resources extensively. In addition to securing energy resources, China could implement land privatization in Siberia arable regions, attracting 300 million Chinese people without any issues. Simultaneously, China could undertake extensive infrastructure projects in Siberia, which could solve China's three core issues: insufficient employment, lack of investment, and weak demand. It would also address the long-standing issue of private property rights, potentially allowing China's economy to grow rapidly for another 20 years. Lao Man argued that diplomatically, turning against Russia would be morally justified, and the West could not criticize China for taking advantage of Russia. In fact, they might even join in, making China one of their own. In this way, China could enjoy at least 20 years of peace. Ultimately, occupying Siberia would be beneficial to China and could lay the foundation for the long-term rise of the Chinese nation. Although Lao Man's proposal is somewhat far-fetched and radical, it could indeed be a solution to the many problems currently facing the CCP. The reality is that Sino-Russian relations are strained, and both sides have their own agendas. Previous media analysis has pointed out that Sino-Russian friendship is based both geopolitics and realism, a marriage of convenience that can never be truly stable. Many Russian international relations scholars believe that if Russia were to collapse, the first to take advantage of the situation would inevitably be the CCP. A researcher at Taiwan's National Defense Institute, Liu Xiaoxiang, who specializes in Sino-Russian border issues, noted that Russia has long feared that a powerful China would seek to reclaim the land ceded during the Qing Dynasty. This fear grows especially during times of Russian weakness. After the Soviet Union collapsed, Sino-Russian power dynamics reversed for the first time in 400 years, and at that time, Russia even worried that China might use economic means to reclaim the lost territories, referring to it as the Yellow Peril or Yellow Threat. Liu states that Russia's response to China and Taiwan differs primarily because Russia is mired in the Ukraine war and needs China's support. Russia even referenced China's One China as support. Russia prioritizes national security interests in the West and its economic development in the East, and this is reflected in its stance on Sino-Russian and cross-strait relations. Liu pointed out that the war in Ukraine will eventually end, and the closer Sino-Russian relations become, the more obvious the conflict would be. For now, these statements are made under the shadow of the US, their common enemy.